Well, today I'm here with Kristin Heimstra. She is the founder of The Art of Potential, where she does career and college coaching. Kristin, thanks for being here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You want to give us the quick rundown of your resume and how you ended up doing what you're doing now?
I would love to, John, but I'm so old that I'm not sure a short rundown now. I started when I graduated from college. I worked as a business manager in the corporate arena. Then I went to what in DC is an association. Those are super popular. But then I transitioned into education because my husband and I wanted to start a family, and that seemed to be the way that would work best for us. So I worked at a community college. I was a school counselor for 20 years. I taught at George Mason University, and then I've also taught at the MBA program at North Carolina State.
What year were you at George Mason, or what years?
It would be the 90s, late 90s. So 98.
Well, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't in 2006, which is when George Mason beat Carolina in the NCAA tournament. Just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that was.
But you say that, but when I was there was when their basketball team was on the rise. And what happened was because, and this happens at Carolina too, anytime the team does really well, you get an influx of freshmen. So when I was there, they had to put the freshmen in hotels because so many students decided they wanted to go there that year.
Yep. No, that happens. Well, it's what Dean Smith always said. The athletics program is the front porch, the front door of the
Yes.
university. Well, so we're probably going to touch on all these different points of your history and some of the questions we'll go through today. Just wanted to help people understand the economics of college.
Okay.
Because, a lot of our clients are kind of in this phase where kids are going to school. Maybe the kids are just finishing school and now they have these loans, but no real career
Right.
that they've figured out. So just trying to handle some of that stuff on the front end and help families have these conversations a little more intelligently. I feel like we've kind of had this American idea for a couple of decades. Like you have to go to college or that's it. Like you can't succeed in life if you don't go to college, which is like this weird, like if you go to Kenya, it's this British system. You have to have an education or you can't do anything because they're not like entrepreneurially wired over there.
Right.
But that's
Right.
not our system. So I don't know how we
Right.
got to that idea of you have to go to college or you're screwed. How did that happen?
I would actually suggest that some of it has to do with the way that the economy evolved and the way that the brain evolved. So the economy evolved. We had child labor for a very long time. And so if you look at when that started to transition, you saw a transition. Once kids couldn't work, then they were in school longer, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have just the way the brain naturally develops. And then you see it in every single society, every single one. Around 18 years old, which is when they graduate from high school, a lot of Europeans send their kids off for a year. Israel sends you go and you do a stint there. Church of Latter-day Saints sends their folks out. It is a developmental time in the brain. And so college gave a softer landing spot for that to happen.
Well, that makes sense. That's a very logical explanation of how that all evolved. But I kind of feel like we're moving away from that. I think some people have kind of started to understand like, okay, there are other paths. Not necessarily every single person needs to go to college. So we'll get into some of those other options and how to evaluate like what path makes the most sense for you. But just thinking about college in general, like let's say it is, yes, for sure, my child is going to college.
Mm-hmm.
How do we evaluate basically comparing the costs of different education? So I know Carolina always is like known for being a good value,
Right?
The education you get for what you pay. But how do you compare that to a place that's maybe 3 times as much as Carolina? I mean, there's no way that the education can be 3 times better. So like, when does it make sense to pay more for an education when you have the cheaper option available to you?
So it does make sense in some situations, and I'll just give you an example. And so just on a different level, I'm going to talk about high school for a minute, but then I'm going to talk about college. So I worked at a public high school, Chapel Hill, Carborough City Schools, some of the best in the nation, right? But you have people coming in who are better fit for private education. They need more support. They need a different environment. They have a problem with the way that that system works. I am a great person to ask this question because I went to a small school for 2 years called Hope College in Holland, Michigan. And then I transferred into Carolina. And I can tell you what the differences are. When you go to a smaller school, people know your name. Like my professors knew my name. I got called one time during a whiteout because Holland, Michigan gets a lot of snow. And my professor's like, where are you? Why aren't you in class? I went to Carolina and I took Econ 101 and I was there with 500 people watching the professor on the Jumbotron. And I was so lost. I'm like, oh my God, I had to declare that class pass fail. So it really... A smaller school that costs more money gives you benefits of personalized attention, smaller classes, and it's really good for somebody who struggles with motivation. So Carolina has a lot of really highly motivated students, and they're going to figure out a way to plug in. They're just going to make it work. That's kind of, and Duke is the same way, believe it or not. There's that ethos of just making it work. That's going to happen. They're going to figure out a way to get it done. Some kids need a little extra pull. They need a little extra support. And you have schools which are really specialized in helping those students do that. So that's one of the ways that I see a private education can really benefit. It's kind of like, why would you send your kid to Ravenscroft, which is a very posh, private school, when you have access to a great public school? Well, because you want them to get something from it, right? So what is your goal? So that's the first thing. The second thing is people who attend private schools, depending on the school itself, are looking to achieve different objectives. So education is one objective of college, but a lot of people are also looking to have big networks or, be really well connected. And those, you also see people paying the big bucks to get those connections. And I'll give you an example of a client that I was speaking with yesterday. The student is probably not going to be able to hit the Carolina grading. So the parent's looking at University of Southern California because that's a fairly highly ranked school, whatnot, because she wants that network. Now, what they're not necessarily considering is that that network's going to be really well plugged in Southern California and not necessarily in North Carolina. So you have to kind of weigh those pros and cons.
Well, so interestingly, I remember having a similar conversation with a client one time whose kid had gone to Georgetown.
Yeah.
And I was kind of pitching the same thing of like, how I think Georgetown at the time was like $60,000 a year. It's more than that now.
Right.
Like, how is the education actually worth that much?
Right.
And she's like, well, look, my kid went to school with, the children of ambassadors and senators and hedge fund managers. And now he has this incredible network of friends. And she said, but I knew my kid.
Yeah.
I would not have sent my daughter there because she would have squandered the opportunity.
Right.
So a lot of it is knowing your kid and kind of understanding what's going to be a fit for them.
Oh, completely. And just with my own two daughters. So one of my daughters went to a private school that was global. So she lived in a different place all around the world. And she ended up taking out, I'll just tell you, it's $10,000 loan in order to get this education. For her, it was worth it. Right. And $10,000 felt like something that was doable by the time all our scholarship money came in. My younger one, that program would have been a complete disaster. She ended up at Carolina, had an incredible experience. So it is. You got to know your kid and what their goals are and where they're going to thrive.
Well, let's talk specifically about degrees and how we determine like what degrees are going to be more profitable than others. I saw a study. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. It's been a while since I've seen it. But basically what they were doing, where they were comparing just, the average salary of a non-college graduate.
Yep.
And then the average cost of a particular degree.
Yep.
And how much more money were you able to make with that degree relative to a non-college graduate. So, a lot of different things. Surgeon, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, you got a high cost to go
Yep.
through all that school, but then it pays itself back pretty quickly.
Right. Right.
So the cost is not necessarily the same as the ROI. It can be a high cost, but still have a higher ROI. On the other hand, physical therapy, very low ROI for what you pay for the degree on average
Right.
relative to what you make compared to the average non-college graduate. So what are you seeing now in terms of profitable versus less profitable degrees, and how do you guide people on that?
Well, so I'll just tell you right now, I feel like I'm standing on an iceberg in global warming because AI is coming on so strong, right? So it used to be if your goal was to be able to land in a high paying job out of the gate, computer science and engineering, they were your go-tos. And if you look at the numbers, that's still the case. Finance is also right up in there. But we know with how fast AI is coming online that those jobs are starting to go away. Now, are they going to completely disappear? Absolutely not. But they are going to be reduced in number in all three fields and in all fields. So, taking into account, first of all, you also have to have somebody has to be connected to what they want to study, right? You don't want to send someone to get a liberal arts education and have them get an engineering degree just so they can make a living. Though I will say I did see that happen a lot in some of the more, I'm going to call it fearful cultures, where it's like, no, you've got to go, you've got to make money. And that's just how it has to be. Right now, I am not comfortable giving anyone advice about what degrees are going to be required because I think we're moving to a gig economy, and I think your best bet is going to be adaptive. So whatever your skill set may be, figure it out and figure out how you're going to move within it. Now, having said that, engineering is still one of the best degrees. They're still going to hire computer scientists. Like, we've got this weird kind of hump, but I feel like, back in the day, everyone was like, go be a coal miner. You're going to make a lot of money, right? Or go work on the auto line. You're going to make a lot of money. And that's going to be true for like such an interesting window. We don't know what it's going to look like.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, it wasn't that long ago that everybody was saying, well, just learn to code. Everybody needs to learn to code, right? And
Right.
that was this whole mantra of, well, your job's going away because,
Right.
you don't fit in the new economy. Learn to code.
Right.
Well, guess who AI is coming for the most is the coders, right? But
Right.
but AI is not going to rewire your house, and it's not going to do your plumbing, and
No,
it's not going to fix your heat pump.
no,
So that leads us into a conversation about trade schools. And it
absolutely.
kind of seems like we might be on the verge of almost like a trade school renaissance, where I think some people are recognizing, all right, this is probably a better way for me to go. But what are you seeing on that front?
So because I do private college coaching, I'm not like my clients aren't coming in for that. However, I will say with a trade school education, to your point, John, anything that works with your hands. So AI does one thing really well, and then it's the missing middle, right? You got to have people who are actually able to do stuff. And so, you know, to your point, HVAC, AI isn't going to fix your car. Like it's not. And you know who you're going to call when your car breaks down? A mechanic. You're not going to call, anybody else. Right. So those jobs are absolutely the plumber. All of those jobs still have very high, like if you look at they can make $30, $45 an hour working for somebody else. And the sky's the limit if they start their own business.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's a lot of potential for somebody in
Need.
any of those trade industries to start your own
Absolutely.
business, use technology well, uh,
Yep.
use your marketing efficiently, show up when you're going to show up. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a ton of money to be made in all of those trades?
I mean, just personally, we have my plumber moved from New York, I'll say 2 years ago, maybe, and already knows everybody in my neighborhood and all over Chapel Hill, because word of mouth is always your best way of getting business, right? And he's killing it.
Yeah.
Now, physically, it's a very demanding job. And physically, he's in his mid 50s. So there's a physicality piece that has to be taken into account as well. But he's doing real well.
Yeah. Well, I know you're big on people understanding the community college
Yeah.
system and really utilizing that better
Yeah.
than most of society is. What do we need to know about community colleges and how we can be using those more effectively?
I'm going to answer that, but there's one other thing that just occurred to me right now that I want to talk about. You can get a free degree, a free 4-year bachelor degree from Arizona State if you work at Starbucks. So just put that in your back pocket. So community colleges have 3 major functions, and probably a lot more, but these are the 3 that people are most familiar with. One is you can get an associate's degree. That's a 2-year degree, and it's super focused. So you can get it on like early child care would be an associate's degree. You can get a nursing degree. That's an associate's degree. There's that type of thing. The second thing you can get is certifications, and those are your HVAC people. They're your physical therapy assistants. They're your occupational therapy assistants. They are your breathing, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there are so many certifications you can get at a community college that plug you immediately into the workforce. And then the third way they're used is kind of a catch-all. So you can start your college education at a community college. I just had one of my clients went to a community college system in Northern Virginia, and now she's going to Cornell. She did 2 years there. I know another kid who did his in Illinois in the Champaign-Urbana, and now he's at Stanford. So you can do, like, you can use that to take those classes and then transfer those into different schools. In North Carolina, we have what are called articulation agreements. So you can go to Durham Tech or Wake Tech or wherever, and the university system has agreed to take a certain amount of students from the state, the community college system into the university. So those pipelines are very well oiled. They're a great way to go. And then the other thing that you can do, which I use the community college system for, is after I graduated, I decided to go get a graduate degree, and I had a lot of prerequisites I didn't have. And so I was able to go in and plug in and take those prerequisites. So you see at the community college level, just a lot of different ages, a lot of different income levels, all kinds of different backgrounds, all using it for different purposes. So those are the ways that we primarily see that system being used.
I actually had a friend in college who did his freshman year undergrad and then still didn't know what he wanted to major in. So his dad said, all right, well, come on home because we're not just going to pay for like indiscriminate undergrad when you don't know what you want to do. So come home. You can do community college for a year, get some credits. If you figure it out, then you can go back.
Yeah.
Ended up, I think he did 2 years in community college and then came right back into the 4-year degree, got his bachelor's, but then he had a vision, right? And so at the time I remember thinking like, dang, kind of harsh there, Dad. But now I'm like, yes, give me more of this guy who is willing to say, there are better ways that we can do this instead of just going to college for 4 years because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, in college, like North Carolina State actually has a great program where they bring freshmen in and give them a taste of all kinds of different things, which for people who, I think some people are afraid to commit to a particular thing because they don't know themselves very well. And you need to know yourself a little bit when you go in the job market, and then you don't know what's out there. So it feels overwhelming to go and to say, hey, I'm going to go to college and major in, X, when in reality, there could be a lot more things you might be interested in.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things that people need to figure out. If they want some guidance on that, Kristin, let's track you down.
That's right. I love that part of it because I do. It's so fun to see the light bulbs come on, and I'll just give kind of general advice. Like, even if you were my private client, I would tell you to go out and get experience. Go out and try things. Put yourself out there. Life is a contact sport. Go get messy. Like, go out. If you just read about it, it's like reading about how to play tennis. You're not going to learn anything. You're going to get on the court and be like, but if you go out and you try something, volunteering or doing an internship, it just informs you so much more about what you're looking at.
I heard somebody use the phrase the other day, I can't describe the color green to somebody who's been blind their whole life.
Right.
You just have to experience for yourself.
Yeah, very much.
Well, where can people find you and how can they get in touch?
Sure. So my website is artofpotential.com. And my email is Kristin@artofpotential.com. And that's with 2 I's. And you can find it on my website. And you can also just call me. And my phone number is on the website.
Simple enough. That's how I tracked you down for this, in fact.
Yep.
Well, Kristin, thanks very much. Appreciate your wisdom and hope to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thanks. Take care.
Carolina Wealth Stewards doing business as Rosewood Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor in the state of North Carolina. The material presented is intended to be general information and should not be construed by any consumer as the rendering of personalized investment advice.